Hello, poetry lovers. This is Jim Ransom with another session of Saturday poetry under the rubric of Morning Jim. And I hope you enjoy hearing them as much as I do reading them for you. Today's title is Over the Centuries. This is an attempt to mix poems from the 17th century. That's the 1600s. For those of you who have trouble with the naming of centuries, and from today to see what common elements may be there and what differences. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of academic jargon here. I think you'll be glad of that. So let's, without more ado, go to the first poem by Billy Collins. You'll remember we read one of his poems last week, and it also was from this book called Whale Day. Now, the poem is titled, and it's important to get this title, Going for a Walk as the Drugs Kick In. It's Friday, and the sun's all over everything after a long week of steady rain. The clouds have moved on to hover over other counties. The irises are showing their white faces streaked with yellow and purple. The bees are out again, making their floral visitations. The beaver swims with a stick in his mouth. The otter is looking out his window. The butterfly doesn't seem to know where it's going. So ample and worthy is the air around me, I am only able to take in one bird at a time. A fruit tree has started to sing. The little town is farther away than ever. I have my arm around the otter, holding him by the shoulder. The scene out his window is so plentiful, and everything is billowing with our love. Well, this is a modern poem without rhyming, but the title and the text, which is, the title is warning us, of course, and the text grab us as we see that it is about the delusion he has as he walks along after taking medications for what we are never told. And it is not important for the message. But it's typical modern poetry by one of the finest American poets, Billy Collins. So here is another poem, this time from a play by Shakespeare called Two Gentlemen from Verona. And this is from a book entitled English Renaissance Poetry, selected by John Williams with an introduction by Robert Pinsky, who is also a very famous modern poet. And this poem by Shakespeare is actually from the play Two Gentlemen of Verona. Who is Sylvia? Who is Sylvia? What is she, that all our swains commend her? Holy, fair, and wise is she. The heaven such grace did lend her that she might admired be. Is she kind as she is fair? For beauty lives with kindness. Love doth to her eyes repair to help him of his blindness, and being helped, inhabits there. Then to Sylvia let us sing, that Sylvia is excelling. She excels each mortal thing upon the dull earth dwelling. To her let us garlands bring. These two poems, the one by Billy Collins and Shakespeare's Who is Sylvia, don't seem to have much in common with each other. One is free verse, one is rhyming, one is in the original and was set to music. The Collins poem is intended to be read, but they both surprise us in different ways. Now then, here is a poem from a recent edition of National Review magazine. National Review is a political journal, started originally by William F. Buckley Jr. But I think you'll enjoy this poem by Maryann Corbett, and its title is Emergency Magic. Back in the wonder time that built this house, a sage intoned, things fall apart. And lo, things did, to wit, the 100-year-old plumbing whose galvanized gray heart got silted up with the seasons, brewing by chemic spells a calculus of trouble. Now, to the day's ablutions, our pipework fails to tender more than a chilly dribble. So the ordeal begins. We come at last to the crunch, as chisel and drill unveil the hidden depths of error, the kind that starts the story in every fairy tale. Summon the elements. Let perilous spells be sung to air that wax us, moaning from the awful wound in the wall, and fire the wild blue tongue of a blowtorch poised for joining new copper, racked from the earth for these bright arts. Come, water, come, gushes, braids, and sprays. Let baths and showers resume and feel more magical now, at least for a couple of days. Now that poem, one of the wonders of that very good poem is that it sort of reestablishes the same sort of rhythm and rhyming and beautiful words that were found in Shakespeare's song. Yeah. Now to the day's ablutions our pipework fails to tender more than a chilly dribble. I mean, the language is Renaissance in many respects, but the mundane problems that it describes are modern. Let baths and showers resume and feel more magical now, at least for a couple of days. I think that poem brings together two eras, not errors, two eras far apart in time, but with similar language. And I think the humor of it comes from the language and its sort of discordance with the problem. It's a plumbing problem. I don't think they had many plumbing problems in Shakespeare's day. At least he never spoke about them, did he? Okay, that's a poem called Emergency Medicine by Maryann Corbett. Now, let's move on a little bit here. I'm looking at my crib sheet, and it tells me it's time to go on. Unless you wish to think that the Renaissance was more buttoned down than we are today, I want you to listen very carefully to this poem by clergyman John Donne, who, at the time he wrote this, was the Dean of St. Paul's in London. I'd say around 1620. And John Donne, of course, was one of the so-called metaphysical poets. He made metaphors of unlike things. So, this is Elegy 19 by John Donne, and its title is Going to Bed. Going to Bed, Elegy 19. Come, madam, come. All rest my powers defy. Until I labor, I in labor lie. The foe oft times, having the foe in sight, is tired with standing, though he never fight. Off with that girdle, like heaven's zones glittering, but a far fairer world encompassing. Unpin that spangled breastplate which you wear, that the eyes of busy fools may be stopped there. Unlace yourself, for that harmonious chime tells me from you that now it is bedtime. Off with that happy busk, which I envy, that still can be, and still can stand so nigh. Your gown going off, such beauteous state reveals, as when from flowery meads the hill's shadow steals. Off with that wiry coronet, and show the hairy diadem which on doth grow. Now off with those shoes, and then safely tread in this love's hallowed temple, this soft bed. License my roving hands, and let them go before, behind, between, above, below. O my America, my new-found land, my kingdom, safeliest when with one man manned, my mine of precious stones, my empery, how blessed am I in this discovering thee. To enter in these bonds is to be free. Then where my hand is set, my seal shall be. Full nakedness, all joys are due to thee, as souls unbodied, bodies unclothed must be. To taste whole joys, gems which you women use are as Atlantis balls cast in men's views, that when a fool's eye lighteth on a gem, his earthly soul may covet theirs, not them. Like pictures or like books gay coverings made for laymen, are all women thus arrayed? Themselves are mystic books, which only we whom their imputed grace will dignify must see revealed. Then, since that I may know, as liberally as to a midwife, show thyself, cast all, yea, this white linen hence. Here is no penance due to innocence. To teach thee I am naked first. Why then, what needst thou more covering than a man? Well, if you're through blushing, you may be aware that in Renaissance England, they knew a few things beyond perhaps what we even know today. And certainly John Donne was writing this about his wife. He had been married very young and had gotten into a lot of trouble with his family and that of hers. And it wasn't until he had fought his way out of the poverty and managed to take church degrees, and his value as a writer and poet was widely recognized, was he appointed to be dean of St. Paul's, which was the beautiful Christopher Wren Church in the center of London. And if you haven't seen it, be sure to go there the next time you're in London. Well, perhaps we should not be surprised to learn that his poetry in general was actually not published until 3 years after his death. Surprise, surprise. But much of it had circulated widely in manuscript form before that, which is not unusual in that age. We think of ourselves as being so sophisticated now, but I'm not so sure that we can match our distant ancestors. Okay, that's it for today. And if you have any trouble interpreting the sexual references in that poem, call me, will you? I'll try to set you straight. No, don't do that. Get the poem and read it yourself. That'll probably help a good deal. Well, we've had a lot of modern and rather ancient poems, and I think we'll stop for now. But thank you for tuning in again, and I'll see you again next Saturday for another edition of Morning Gym Poetry. It'll be something completely different than this week, and this week was completely different from last week. That's the theme of this program, differences. But the underlying theme is really more important, and that is that poetry takes many, many forms and has done so for many, many centuries with many, many genius writers behind them all. Bye now.